Welcome to Grammar 3N. In this book, we'll be looking at sit versus set and raise versus rise, objects of the preposition, and some sentence diagramming. So first, let's get into sit versus set. Let's look at the explanation page just to get our feet wet. So here at the top we have some verbs can sound similar, but you can tell the difference between them by looking for a direct object or do after the verb. Here we have our word sit, which means to rest. Our example sentence is, we sit down. This means that we are resting. We are going to sit down. Nothing is receiving that action. We are simply doing the action. Whereas when we have the verb to set, it means to place or put. She set a vase down. Something is being placed. The vase is being put down. So you can see that there's this difference where something is receiving the action, whereas we are simply completing the action. When you get into this booklet, what you want to do is first get rid of those prepositional phrases because we know that the direct object will never be in that prepositional phrase. So that can help you. However, if you're still unsure after you get rid of that prepositional phrase, what you can do is imagine yourself as the subject. We set the vase down. I set the vase down. When I'm setting the vase down, I am putting an action to an object, to a thing, to a person. Whereas when I sit down, I am simply completing an action. Let's look at rise versus raise. It's a similar kind of theme where we have rise meaning to go up. The smoke rises. The smoke is completing the action of going up. Whereas to raise means to lift or move higher. I raise my hand. My hand is receiving the action of raising. Once again, let's do the action. I'm raising my hand. Something is receiving that action of lifting or moving higher. Whereas when I rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, that is me simply completing that action. So once again, get rid of those prepositional phrases, and then after that, if you're unsure, complete the action yourself. It'll help you a lot to understand the difference if you're confused. All right, so now we're going to go into prepositional phrases with multiple objects of the preposition or multiple OPs. So let's look at the explanation page once more. A prepositional phrase can be found at the end of a sentence. At the end of every prepositional phrase, you will find nouns or pronouns known as the objects of the preposition. Here are some examples. I'm not going to get into these examples because we are going to complete one on our own, but once again, I will remind you to cross out the prepositional phrase, and it will never include the verb or the direct object, and you want to get rid of those first so you can understand all the other good stuff that's in that sentence. Also, you can find a list of prepositions in the back of the book. So let's jump into our example. We have the sentence, an insect landed on a tree and a flower. So first, let's get rid of our prepositional phrase. Our preposition is on, and then we are going to cross out the whole phrase. So on a tree and a flower. Notice that it's ending with a noun, but there's also another noun in there, tree. So that means that we have two objects of the preposition. They both need to be labeled OP. And now we just have an insect landed. So now we can easily see what is our subject and what is our verb. And now we have successfully identified the parts of speech and the functions of speech in this sentence. Now we're going to learn how to diagram a sentence that looks like that. So let's get into our next example sentence, which is Pavi raised her hand in English and math. So let's figure out what we have here. So we've got our prepositional phrase. Of course, we want to cross that out first. So in English and math. Notice that there are two nouns at the end of this prepositional phrase, English and math. So now we've labeled English, math. We know in is our preposition, and is a conjunction. So let's label that while we're at it. And now we just have Pavi raised her hand. This is going to be super easy and straightforward now. We know our subject is Pavi. We know that she is raising her hand. So raised is our verb. And then what is she raising? Remember, there will be a DO with this verb. It's her hand that's being raised. And then her is describing hand. It's telling us whose hand it is. So now that we've figured everything out in this sentence, let's make our diagram. We've got our nice long line. We're going to separate the whole subject with the whole predicate. And then, of course, we've got our direct object, so we need this nice little straight line to separate out our verb from direct object. We do have an adjective describing our direct object, and of course we have our prepositional phrase, but of course this will look a little different because we have a compound OP. Just like when we have a compound subject, a compound verb, we're going to have this nice little triangle and rectangle kind of combined shape. So now let's start filling this out. We've got our subject and our verb, Pavi raised, and of course the direct object is receiving that action and it's being described by her. So now we have our first half of the sentence, and now we just have to put in all of our little pieces for the prepositional phrase. Remember, the preposition goes on this nice diagonal line. And then English and math are our two different OPs. And then we have our conjunction that puts those together, that connects them. And that's how you're going to diagram the sentence, Pavi raised her hand in English and math. If you have any questions over this or any other grammar-related question, please ask the person at your center who grades your grammar.